Hello and welcome to the MB Om podcast, where you will learn to master the business of yoga with guests from around the world who have experienced becoming successful yoga teachers, studio owners, and much more. Now, here's your host, Amanda Kingsmith.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of the MB Om podcast. I'm Amanda, and I'll be your host for today's episode. I've got a super special guest on today. Her name is Roegele, and she's joining me from just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia. So a suburb near White Rock, Surrey area of British Columbia, for those who are familiar. Lauren became interested and involved in yoga as a personal healing years ago after she suffered a pretty traumatic event and was dealing with some post-traumatic stress disorder. And yoga really helped her heal her body, heal her mind, and she instantly fell in love with it and really wanted to teach others because it had impacted her in such a positive way. And she's really just been teaching ever since. And she's owned a yoga studio, so she's got some really cool lessons out of that. And she is business partners with someone else in Yoga TV, which you'll learn about on the podcast. And then she's also program director for the Vancouver School of Yoga. So lots of really cool experience, a ton of really great business lessons, and information for new yoga teachers. So without further ado, here's Lauren.
So thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It's really amazing to have you here.
Thank you for asking.
Oh yeah, of course. I don't know much about your yoga journey at all. So if you want to start by just kind of taking me through that, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, it's a bit of a loaded story. But it actually started in my darkest hour. It started when I was struggling severely with depression, and knowing now what I know, it was actually undiagnosed post-traumatic stress. From years prior, I was walking across the street and was hit by a drunk driver and almost died.
That's good.
Yeah, it was a bit crazy. Yeah. So I was in and out of the hospital, and the driver took off, and left me there, which was kind of crazy too. So it was not only dealing with the physical issues that were happening, but dealing with the emotions behind it and the anger that was there. And it seemed like the hospitals and the doctors were really good about addressing my body and the things that were going on with my body, but they weren't necessarily talking to me about what are some of the emotions or some of the psychological things that would come up with that, which I still think is kind of crazy because it was back in 1999 that the accident happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we skip forward a few years, I had just finished college in Seattle and had been in and out of the hospital and dealing with a lot of night terrors and a lot of pain, a lot of fatigue. They diagnosed me with fibromyalgia, diagnosed me with ulcerative colitis, which is inflammation in your colon. So I felt crappy all the time, to say the least. And I really just spiraled into this dark depression. And after I graduated, which I accelerated my program, I knew if I stopped, I wouldn't ever finish. I wouldn't go back. So I just kept accelerating my program until I was done. And when I was done, I came back to live with my parents. I was still young. I was only 19 years old. And even my parents were just at a loss for words as to what to do with me, really. And in a sad time, I just said, you know what? I'm going to end my life. And yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about it at this stage.
Yeah.
However, recognizing that, I decided to spend as much time as I could with my family. And my mom at the time was doing yoga. She's always been sort of a fitness trend lady, and she's really fit. Yeah. And so of course she was going to like power yoga, which had I known if I knew what I knew now, that was the last place I would send someone with what I was dealing with.
Yeah.
But I was just going to be with my mom.
Yeah.
So, she took me to the power class, and I'm pretty sure the teacher was terrified when I gave him the long list of issues that I was dealing with, and he ended up just giving me, right? He gave me like a stack of blocks, and I swear he kind of like looked at me like, good luck. And I did the class, and it was an Ashtanga based class. And so by Sun Salutation B, Surya Namaskar B, I was dying. I was like gasping for air, and I couldn't believe what we were doing and how hard this was. Like, I had the similar feeling about yoga as many other people had. Like, you just stretch, right? It's what's so hard about that. And it was so hard.
Yeah.
To keep the story sort of going and shorten it somewhat, at the end of the class, I just collapsed literally out of exhaustion on my mat into like a huge pool of sweat, my own sweat. And, I believe that the physical surrendering of my body allowed for me to feel aspects of myself that I had been suppressing and numbing for a long period of time. Yeah. And I just started sobbing like many people do in Shavasana. And, I realized in that moment that it wasn't that I wanted to die. It was just that I didn't want to live like this anymore. I didn't want to live in pain anymore. I didn't want to live like suppressing the feelings anymore. And I really just needed help. And that was a statement I hadn't said before. I hadn't said in those years, that I just need help. And so really that moment, that experience inspired me to turn around to my mother who was there with me that day and say, I need help. Please help me. I wanted to die. I was planning to kill myself. Please help me. Yeah. And she did. I started seeing a psychiatrist regularly for a good number of years. And I literally on that day committed to doing yoga. So I got as many books as I could, and I was that annoying student that stayed after class and had like a long list of questions for my teacher. And, every birthday and Christmas, all I wanted was yoga passes. And, I ended up getting a job at Lululemon so that it could like feed my yoga obsession as well. And I started to lose weight and feel better. And it was amazing. It was the combination of learning about what I was dealing with, psychologically and emotionally, and then moving my body in a way to process that really changed everything. Yeah.
That's a pretty incredible story.
Right? I know. It's a bit crazy. Yeah. It's kind of nice to not sob when I tell it anymore though.
Yeah. You definitely seem like you're at peace with everything that happened, which is really cool. Yeah. I feel like it probably took a long time to get there.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it did.
That's amazing though. Like to go from a place where you literally just don't want to live life to just being like, I can see your face and I can see that you're like a happy person. Like there's a sparkle in your eyes and that sort of thing. So that's amazing that yoga helped you do that.
Yeah. It feels so interesting now. It feels, like such a long time ago that I agree. It's hard to believe that I was that sad. But there are little glimpses in which I can remember that sadness. And I believe that as a blessing, because it allows for me to be able to sit with people who also feel that depth of sadness or a certain level of pain, that I can remember even just for a moment what that feels like. And it reminds me that, I'm not alone in experiencing this, and it helps me remind them that they're not alone as well. And I think that's important.
Yeah, definitely. Was that like part of what kind of attracted you to teaching, was so that you could help other people? Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a few equations, a few things that came together to create that. One was, I'm pretty sure my teacher was just tired of asking or answering all my questions. And he looked at me and said, like, go do a teacher training. Go learn for yourself. Like, you're ready for it. And, so that initiated the curiosity behind it. And then once I started doing some research and looking into what it meant and sort of sitting with myself and questioning where I was at and where I wanted to go and changing directions, it was a no-brainer. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a pretty incredible story.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that story. I think that's, there's a lot of people, I think, who deal with maybe on different levels, like depression or PTSD, and yoga really does kind of like save their lives.
Yes. Absolutely. It's interesting. That's such a bold statement. Yoga saved my life. And it's very true. Yoga did. However, it was the practice. It was the effort I was was willing to put forth into the practice that helped save my life. It wasn't this external thing that saved my life. Yoga just was the path that helped me come into myself, where I was able to reflect more fully on where I was at. And as I mentioned, ask for what I needed in my life, and work for that. It's not an easy path. It wasn't an easy transition to go from where I was to where I am. But God, was it worthwhile?
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah, I think that's important for people to hear too. It's not like, oh, I feel sad and now I'm doing this downward dog and something like magical happens.
Right. Totally.
Definitely a journey there. And then, so how long were you practicing for and kind of healing yourself before you did your yoga teacher training?
Yeah, so I started practicing near the end of 2001 and took my first teacher training in 2005 at It's Yoga in San Francisco with Larry Schultz, who passed away a number of years ago. He was a really wild man, but a fantastic teacher. Yeah.
That's awesome. So were you born like Seattle area, or are you from Canada?
No, actually I was born in Vancouver, British Columbia, and lived just in the suburbs of White Rock, British Columbia. But my parents, I have lots of relations in the US. So my dad actually lives in the United States. And at the time I've always been an artsy type of person, and I was very much into fine arts in high school. And so I ended up at the Art Institute of Seattle before they had the Art Institute of Vancouver. Had they had the Art Institute of Vancouver, I probably just would have gone to that institute here, but they didn't have one. So I had the privilege of going there to Seattle, which was cool. It was a cool experience.
Yeah, definitely. The US is like a super interesting place to live for a little bit. So
yeah. Good point. For a little bit. Sorry. I love you, Americans. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little different from Canada, so I get it for sure.
Yeah.
And so you have kind of like your career has seemed to have taken off in the last few years. What was sort of your path as a yoga teacher? Like, where did you start?
Well, I started locally, actually, in the small community in which I grew up in White Rock, British Columbia. Just a suburb outside of Vancouver. Mm-hmm. And I opened a yoga studio with a friend of mine, Dan Clements, back in 2006. And we ran that studio together for a year. And then he separated and went off to sort of travel around and teach, as his nomadic ways love to take him on. And I continued the operating of the studio. It was Live Yoga in White Rock, British Columbia. And it's still there doing really well. It's a fantastic studio run by a beautiful couple, Sean and Amy. And, it was an interesting thing. I really sort of bought myself a job, I guess you could say, by investing in a studio. Mm-hmm. But at the time in the area, there was only a Bikram yoga studio. So I felt really compelled. The man I partnered up with, Dan, he was teaching yoga out of his home, and he was one of my first teachers. And I kept saying to him, let's make a commercial space. Like, let's get everyone out of your living room and let's do this. And one day he just looked at me and said, okay. And I don't know if he thought I was actually serious or not, because within the next week I had found a place and had partnership contracts signed up and ready for signing. And he looked at me like, wow, okay, you're serious about this. And there it began. And it was a wild ride, to cultivate community and to sort of evolve not only my own personal practice, but my practice as a teacher, and to see the students evolve. And it was remarkable. Yeah, I have fond memories of that experience. Yeah,
really that's amazing. What kind of things did you learn from like owning and operating a yoga studio?
Yeah, good question. Consistency is so important when running something like that, mm-hmm. that when it comes down to the teachers or the schedule or just having some level of reliability for the students to come to, and then creating a sense of community where people feel a part of something. It seemed to be the biggest task at the studio. Mm-hmm. It was less about it was almost less about the shapes and the postures that we were creating in the classes and more about the gathering of the people together and doing it together that really seemed to be the most powerful aspect of it all. From a business perspective, I learned, it seems to be a reoccurring lesson in my life, by the way. So if I'm redundant in this, I apologize.
That's totally fine.
But from a business perspective, the biggest lesson I learned was ask for help. At the beginning stages, I was doing everything. I was cleaning the studio. I was doing the books for the studio. I was doing inventory for the studio. I was doing the scheduling, doing all the writing of the checks, managing the teachers. If a teacher was sick, I filled. Like, it was exhausting.
Yeah.
As the business started to run and of course made some more money, I was able to hand off the things like get a bookkeeper and have her do the books. Oh my gosh. I remember I would hug the bookkeeper every time I saw her because I was just so grateful that she was doing what I hated so much. It was just because I was afraid to ask for help or unsure that I needed to do that. And so that was a really big lesson that I still seem to be learning, but one that for business is important.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's so huge. Like, any business you run, not even just like a yoga studio, is remembering that you can't do it all because, you know, at the end of the day, you're a yoga teacher who's like taking your passion to a yoga studio and remembering that that's what you do well. You teach yoga. And maybe you do like other things well. It's not like you're terrible at other things, but you know, there's people who are trained, like you're trained in teaching yoga, to do books, and they love doing that. They sit there and they nerd out on it the way that, you know, yoga teachers nerd out on moving the body.
Yes, they love it. They love numbers. It's crazy to me, but they do.
It's also crazy to me. I have accountant friends and I'm like, really? Are you sure that's what you want to do? Are you sure? Are you really happy? I don't really get this, but okay, go for it.
Right? Yeah. Let's talk in 5 years if you're still into it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to like reserve myself because I still have these like doubts that they could ever really be happy doing that.
Yeah.
But you know, people have different interests, so I totally get that.
So true.
And then how long did you own the yoga studio for before you separated?
Yeah, so I ran it from 2006 to 2010. I had my daughter. I have a daughter, Stella. Yeah. Stella! And I had her in 2009. And after I had her, you know, everything changed again. And I remember nursing her late at night, looking down at this sweet little face and thinking, I'm not sure running the business is where I want to be anymore. What I really want to do is just be a fantastic yoga teacher and a fantastic mom, and to create some space to cultivate that in both ways. And the business itself, the burden of running the business, felt exactly that, like a burden. So it was literally the next morning I woke up and placed a random Craigslist ad. Yes, I sold my business on Craigslist. And it just worked out well. So I sold the following January in 2010. And I worked there for a while and then decided to spread my wings. I actually ended up teaching at Steve Nash, which at first was a bit resistant to the sort of gym environment, but I had the most profound experience. You know, similar to maybe what you've experienced, what other people have experienced about going to a gym, is that they really make it accessible. So they have reasonably priced memberships, they have child minding or daycare for the kids, and they have a variety of options. You know, you can do the treadmill or the yoga classes or the exercise classes, Pilates, you know, the list goes on. And so I found that even though I was resistant to the space and to the corporate sort of pyramid of it all, the people that were showing up were really there for great reasons. And I taught a class exactly the way I would teach in a yoga studio. You know, we opened and closed the class with the sound of Om, and I always have a heart-based theme or intention behind all of my classes. And alignment is very important to me, and empowering people is really important to me, and breathing technique is really important to me. And so these were components that mattered and things that I held true in my yoga teaching. And you could just see people were so thirsty for it. And it changed my opinion on it. Now, I was only there for a few years before I just had to get out of that cold room, the air-conditioned room. And I'm happy to say that, a number of students came with me. However, it was a really beautiful experience. And so if anyone out there is a new teacher and they're listening to this and they're, hesitant or even judgmental about some of the smaller gyms or even the bigger gyms like the gym that I mentioned, I really encourage you to try it because the people that are showing up a lot of the time are showing up because it's affordable or because it has childcare, and they are thirsty for authentic yoga, skillful teachers.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. I think there's kind of this like stereotype that you're almost not like a real yoga teacher if you're not teaching at a studio, or that you have to teach different from the way you would normally teach in your studio environment at a gym. And I feel like that's such a good example of, just holding true to the way that you teach and bringing like that authentic way of teaching to the gym. Yes.
It was scary. I'm not going to lie. It's always scary being you and unapologetic about that. But it honestly has never let me down.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I definitely get that. I mean, I've taught quite a few karma classes and I kind of always have this moment of like, do these karma people who are coming for free, do they want to ohm? And then I was like, I don't really care if they want to ohm. I'm going to ohm.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Cause it's sharing your path. Like it's sharing your practice. It's sharing what means, something to you. And people want to hear that in my experience. Yeah. So the journey continues from there. I met a friend of mine, or I met this woman who we just kept showing up at literally showing up at workshops together. Everywhere I went, she was there. It was crazy. It was so crazy that at the end, I think the 5th time we showed up to a class or a workshop and she was there, we both ran up to each other and said, obviously we need to be friends because you're everywhere I go. And she laughed and I laughed and we placed our mats beside each other at this workshop. And, when on breaks, we just sat and chatted. And she's got 2 kids and I had my daughter at the time and we were talking about yoga and our love of yoga. And she said, I've been teaching my friends on Skype and I want to do this business and we should connect and talk. And anyways, long story short, Carly Jean Lobson, who I'm speaking about, and her and I met in her backyard often with our kids running around and us, practicing handstands and chit-chatting about yoga and the industry, came up with an online website called yogo.tv. And it's an online yoga studio that has a continually updated library of yoga videos. And we're supporting Canadian teachers. So that's how I know Jeff. And there are a variety of really fantastic yoga teachers there. And we're spreading our wings across Canada. We will be in Toronto by the end of the year and Montreal by the end of the year. And we'll have English classes and French classes. And that's been going on since 2011. And it's been a roller coaster, like, again, all business endeavors are.
Yeah.
As you can see, I'm not the most tech savvy person, so I can't even believe that I'm part of a website of all things. Oh my gosh, I can't even get onto Skype. However,
it's okay, my FaceTime shut down, so.
Right? Oh my gosh. So it's interesting, but we have an amazing team of people, and I feel really passionate, again, about making yoga accessible. So the biggest thing that we noticed was that people were just really complaining. Like, I want to get to yoga. I want to try yoga. And yoga felt so good when I was doing it. But, I'm busy, or my husband travels. And so I got the kids at home, or I just can't seem to get in my schedule. Or the only time that yoga classes are on is when I'm busy, or I'm getting the kids to bed, or, or I'm traveling for work. And it's sort of like the excuses just kept going and going. And we kept saying, how can we make this accessible? And how can we make this as authentic as we can? And how can we make this real and have people feel like they're in the back of the class? And yeah, it was interesting to put it all together. And for me to be able to, there's no limitations now. I can say, come do class with me. Like you can literally just go on to your computer and do it from your computer or connect it to your Apple TV and take class with me. And, that feels really exciting.
Yeah, that's such a cool business idea because I feel like there is really that need, like moms with new babies who, dads go to work, or maybe they're a single mom and they can't come, or moms with small children. Yes. People who work corporate all day and they just don't feel like being around people anymore and they just want to get on their mat.
right? Or the traveling business person who just wants to do it from their hotel room.
Yeah. Definitely.
The other thing that really excites me about yoga.tv and being not only involved, but also being a teacher on the site is that the business itself supports teachers and studios. So every time someone watches a video of that teacher makes money. Just like every time that person watches that video of that teacher in that studio, not only does that teacher make money, but that studio makes money. And I want to say that yoga is like, it's always perfect and blissed out and we're all loaded and we're all kicking ass, and we're not, right? It's hard. It can be a tough, challenging industry. And so when Carly and I sat down to talk further about just the structure of the business, it was really important to us that we supported studios and teachers by, creating some passive income in a way. And that excites us. And especially Canadian. We're Canadian, right? Like, it's cold in the winter. And so, like, how can we support, cold bodies in the winter online? And how can we continue to support Canada? Like, you don't need to cross the border to get amazing yoga. Like, stay here in your own country. That too was really important. So much that I want to plaster like a huge Canadian leaf on the website. And my partner's like, no. I'm like, everything should be red and white. And she's like, that's a little much.
Oh my God, I love that. It's just like branding massive Canadian leaf just shows up on the website. That's so great. So how do you guys go about like structuring that whole thing? Like, is it the responsibility of the teachers then to do their own filming?
No, we come in and film. So, when we live in BC, so the BC teachers that we work with, Carly is a fantastic videographer, so she goes out specifically to those studios. So we go into the studios, which is why we support the studios, is we actually use their space to film the classes. When we look at Alberta, which we have Kristen Stewart and then Jeff Ma, of course. Kristen's in Calgary and Jeff in Canmore. And we have an amazing videographer in Calgary that comes out and does the shoots for us there. And we have the same setup for Montreal and Toronto that we'll have by the end of the year. So it's just it's more economical in so many ways for us to connect with amazing videographers and support them in a way by hiring them to set it up, and go to the teachers. It also allows for us to be, like quality control, to have some quality control over the videos.
Yeah, totally. That's why I was asking that, because I was just imagining these sort of like home
random crazy
yoga videos.
And like butt shot down dogs, right? Yeah.
I love when people do like handstands and all of a sudden you only see like their torso, and you're like, I think you're doing something really cool with your legs right now, but I'm not sure because I can't see it.
Right? Or you're seeing them do something and then the cat just comes in. It's just like all cat.
Yeah, totally. And there's something so great about seeing those videos on YouTube or Instagram. But as far as like a business goes, there definitely, I feel like, needs to be that quality, especially too, because people pay a fee to watch the videos, right?
Exactly. Yeah. There's a number of options. So you can actually go on, we just started this year where you can go on and pay just for an all day access. So if you just wanted to go on for one day, no need to sign up for membership or any monthly fees. It's just $2.94. So it's actually a penny cheaper than a Starbucks latte. And it won't give you any of the jitters. But it'll let you go on, and if you wanted to try it out, it's a great place to try. And you can do a class in the morning and then come back and do a class with your husband. And we have family yoga on there too, so you could come back and have the whole family do it after dinner.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Right. Or you of course can sign on in the more traditional way, which is paying $18 a month or $188 a year. And obviously the annual fee is the best deal. But everyone gets 7 days free to just try it, and you can cancel at any time. We looked at it and thought, what's reasonable? Like what's going to help us keep the quality of the site up in the way that we want it to be, which is like simple and easy and user friendly. But also what's going to like be reasonable for people out there. And we felt like $18 was really reasonable. Even if you only do it a few times a month, you're actually paying less than you would if you were going into a yoga studio for a drop-in. It's anywhere from $16 to $22 these days. So we wanted to make it really reasonable.
Yeah, I was like $18 a month. Like there's no chance you could get a yoga membership that affordable.
Right. Yeah. And we have everything from like 15-minute classes and short little tutorials on specific shapes or postures. We have chanting. We have different meditation. We have Pilates. We have 30, 45-minute, hour and a half classes. We have, yoga for arthritis and yoga for athletes, yoga for after skiing. The list goes on and on. So we're really proud of the library. It's been obviously a number of years of another hard-ass work project and a lot of really amazing moments too, collaborating with other teachers and being inspired by their story as well. You probably feel that with this podcast.
Oh yeah, definitely. I've had the chance to connect with so many cool yoga teachers and stuff like across Canada and in the US, which has been really, really cool.
Yeah.
I just love that idea. I think that's such a cool business to be a part of, and you must be learning so much through that you maybe never expected to learn.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know what I really learned? You know what I especially learned from being behind the camera?
What?
In front of the camera.
Yeah.
And something that I hope other people will, because I don't know about you, but I'm really hard on myself.
Yeah. I feel like most of us are.
Right? Don't you think that? I feel like, especially with yoga teachers, so I've been a part of the Vancouver School of Yoga for a number of years, guest teaching since 2008, and now I've been the program director for the 200-hour and the 240-hour, which are the foundation yoga teacher trainings you're probably aware of, since 2011. And I find that one of the things working with the teachers that I see the most is a lack of confidence, insecurities, and self-doubt, like just this idea that we're not good enough. Yeah. And what I learned about being in front of the camera for yoga.tv and then watching myself is that, you know what? Like, I'm enough. Like, I don't really have anything to prove. And I have a really strong, devoted practice, and I have for a really long time. And it's like, I just have this love affair with yoga and the breath particularly. And I believe in it. And I believe I know enough and I practice enough that I have something to offer. And so I'm really excited that people will come and be able to watch the video. And I screw up my left and rights. And I say silly things and I mess up my words. And, I'm totally normal. And that was part of yoga. We don't edit it. We don't voice over. We want people to giggle about that. And sometimes I need to modify a pose just like everyone else. And, I just learned that when I'm watching these videos, instead of judging myself or beating myself up about the silly little thing or the way in which I, had verbal diarrhea there for a moment, or I messed something up for a moment, that, you know what, it's okay.
Yeah.
And maybe someone will think that's endearing and cute and sweet, or they'll giggle about it at home. And it's enough. It was enough. It was good enough. And that really means a lot to me.
I love that lesson. I think that's so, so, so important. Like, it's like the yoga, everything from like the yoga clothing, like we're constantly in these like tight, stretchy pants, and there's almost this pressure of like, you need to look a certain way, to go wear Lululemon. And then if you don't look that way, you can't teach yoga well. And that's like, I don't know who decided that was a thing, but I'm like, that's not a thing.
I just taught yoga this morning, and I don't know if you can see, but I just got a jean shirt on, and I have pants from Target that I got for $10. Oh, you can't see it, but they're like fleecy. How am I doing this? What am I doing? Oh, I could just turn it around.
You're like rotating all over my screen.
Look, I can just turn it around. Wait, look, see? They're just like purpley, look, purple. This is like
those are awesome.
Shirt. And then like oh, that's my window. Oh, that's me. Okay. Anyways, I was rambling. I'm sorry for those that were listening. I was like, what's that? I can't even see what she's doing.
It's like spinning video on my side.
Right? It's like, what? I just wanted to prove that I'm not wearing any Lulu, and I taught yoga today, and it was a fine class. Let's be honest.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I don't think that you have to, you worked at Lululemon. I worked at Lululemon. I love Lululemon. I have nothing against that company. Totally. I think it's amazing. But I think that, my experience working there were so many people who were shopping with somebody else, and they're like, oh, I can't wear this stuff. Like, I'm fat. And I'm like, self-love. Like, you're beautiful, and you can wear anything you want to wear.
Right. Totally. Yeah.
But then you catch yourself in those moments where
of course,
I can't wear these pants. Like, they're way too bright. Like,
right. oh my God, look at my butt. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
exactly.
What's someone to think of me like this? And it's like, you know what? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares what someone says about you? If you love those pants, rock those pants.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think that's a great lesson. And being on video too, it's so easy to, especially when you watch yourself move. Oh. It's so easy to be like, oh, why do I look so awkward there?
Oh, it's the worst. It's so hard. It's so hard. But I learned a lot about myself as a teacher, and I learned a lot about just that message, that sense of sufficiency. Like, you know what? I'm good enough. I have enough, and I'm smart enough, and I'm capable enough. And yeah, it's a daily practice for me, to be honest. It's not easy. Like, a sense of sufficiency isn't a sense of compliance. See, you know what I mean? It's not you're not submitting to something, you're not being submissive. It takes effort to when those inner comments come in and the limiting concepts arise, that you say, you know what? No. Like, that's not true. And I'm not gonna lean into that. I'm not gonna play with that. I'm actually gonna turn around and tell myself that no, it was enough. And it happens all the time, even off of video. You know, when you do a class and maybe it didn't go as planned, and you're reacting to the facial expressions of the students in the room, and it's all blank or deer in headlights type of gazing, and you're thinking, oh, or you had a class and a bunch of your teacher friends showed up and you're self-doubting yourself the whole time, and at the end of it, you're like, oh, did they hate it? Was I bad? And you know what? It's like, it was enough. Like, if we I feel like if we just took it from that place, it would help. And it's because I know I've done the work. You know what I mean? Like, I sit down, I prepare my classes, I take time to consider the students that are showing up regularly for those classes. I have deep, thoughtful intentions. I get to my mat every day, whether it's 30 minutes or an hour and a half. I move my body, connect to my breath. And so I know that the skillfulness is there. The means in which for me to offer a lovely class is present. Mm-hmm. And so at the end of the day, I know I've done enough. So it must come out in that way as well.
Yeah. It's cool to get to a place where you can have the confidence in the things that you're doing and know that, like, okay, I've done everything that I can do, and, you know, I'm offering what I can offer. And there's probably going to be people who are like, I'm good without that again, and that's fine. Yeah. Kind of like letting that go. Yeah. Because the majority of people are going to walk out of your class and be like, that was amazing, I'm coming back tomorrow.
Right. And they won't even remember what you did. They'll remember how great Shavasana felt. No, seriously.
Totally.
Right? They're like, I don't even know what we did in that class, but it was great.
It's this whole thing of, like, as a practitioner, I feel like everyone, you know, people walk in and they think that everyone's looking at them, but everyone thinks that everyone else is looking at them, and nobody's actually looking at each other because everyone's so focused on thinking that everyone's looking at them. And then as a teacher, it's really easy to get caught into this, like, oh, I wonder if they caught that slip up, or oops, I used the wrong hand. Maybe they'll remember it like 3 weeks from now. But then putting yourself in that perspective where they're so focused on what they're doing that they're not even paying attention to you.
Totally.
They're just in their head, doing their thing, feeling into their body, and you're just taking them there.
Exactly. Yes. It's so true.
It's so easy to get lost. Like, it's a really interesting career, a really interesting thing to do.
Yes. Because really you are offering yourself while on the path. So we are all in process, like we're all processing and evolving and changing. But we're actually like showing that, like vulnerably showing our process on the path in front of people. I mean, it's crazy. I've been teaching for over 10 years now, and some people have known me from the beginning, from when I first started teaching. And for them to see the evolution of me and like my teaching is crazy as well, to see how I've evolved, and in a way that's a bit scary and sort of intimidating, because they've seen me on that path, on that process. And it's a bit, you know, I would imagine it would feel similar to like celebrities, you know, that were youth, right? And they were kids on TV, and we watched them grow up, and we've seen like the great things in their life, and we've seen their failures, right?
Yeah, and, totally.
In a way, they see the same with us. And so it also reminds me that people are sincerely, like innately compassionate and generally kind and loving. And those people don't judge me on, you know, my crappy classes and my great classes. They just come for class because it brings them into themselves, and they know that they're worthy of that time, and I'll lead them in that place, from that place.
Yeah, definitely. I really love that way of like thinking about that. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
And so do you guys have any like goals with Yoga TV?
Oh gosh. Yes. Our biggest goal, you know what our biggest goal is to be the number one Canadian online yoga studio, like to be that resource for people. And, we would love to go worldwide, but let's be honest, it's hard to compete with the other, Santa Monica businesses and across the United States. And we were really proud to be Canadian, and we're proud to represent the Canadian yoga industry, and showcasing them in that way. So yeah, that's our biggest mission, is to get into Montreal and Toronto this year with some fantastic teachers and inspire people to log in and to see that time with themselves is of huge importance, and to spend that time doing yoga.
That's awesome. Or just in Shavasana.
Yeah, right? Or chanting. We have chanting videos. You could just sit and chant. Oh,
that's awesome.
Right? Yeah.
Chanting is really underrated in a lot of ways, I think.
Yes.
It's pretty incredible.
I totally agree. It's so much fun.
Once you free yourself from this, it's that same idea. People are listening to me. People care that my voice sucks or that I'm out of pitch. People don't care what you sound like because they're too concerned about what they sound like.
Right? Yes. And especially when you're at home by yourself, whatever.
Yeah, it's just your downstairs neighbors that might hear you.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It doesn't matter.
Agreed.
Is there a lot of competition in the online yoga video industry?
Absolutely. I mean, it's hard to compete with YouTube, to be honest. It's hard to compete with, there's a Santa Monica business doing the same thing, and they have all the rock star yoga teachers. So yeah, absolutely. I believe similar to the yoga industry itself in the sense of studios and just teaching in your own community, whether that's in a big city or in a small rural area, is that there's enough for all of us. So I just want to hone in on that. And whether that seems naive or not, I feel like there's enough for all of us. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to look at it, because it's I don't know, it becomes so dog eat dog otherwise. And then if you begin trying to tear other people down to be better than them, I just feel like you can really lose yourself in that.
Oh, for sure. There's an Olympic athlete out here, and he was a runner, and I'm sounding really uneducated because I'm not sure in which area he won, but he's an amazing man. And he often spoke about running and how you were never going to win if you turned around to look at your opponents behind you, that you had to just keep your eye forward on the race and go forward the whole time. And so we've always done that from the beginning, and we continue to come back to our why. Why are we doing this? Because it's not an easy industry. It's not easy to be online. It's not easy to be tech. It's not easy to convince people to do yoga at home by themselves. To have the discipline to log in and do that themselves is harder than just getting up and going to a studio often. So to inspire people to do that has been really challenging. And then just to keep up with the technology. However, we really believe in it, and we believe in the business, and we believe in the structure of the business that we're doing to help create, to help the studios and the teachers themselves. And so continually coming back to that why for us helps us just stay on track and stay moving forward.
Yeah, that's amazing. And how do you guys scout teachers? Is it people that you guys know, word of mouth? Do teachers reach out to you?
That way. Yeah, it started that way. It started with teachers that we knew, that we thought were really fantastic. For myself, being in the industry for a while here in British Columbia, and I know some really fantastic teachers, and so it seemed quite easy to just call upon your friends and say, hey, let's do this, even though some of them were like, God, no. And then a few other people we found, not necessarily through the grapevine, but through other skillful teachers. They said, you know what, you got to call so-and-so, or you got to call so-and-so. And we just started to place ourselves in interesting areas. So we're not only here in the Lower Mainland in Vancouver, but we're over on Victoria and the islands, and we go up into Kamloops and Kelowna, and like I said, up into Alberta and Calgary and Canmore, and so it's been really exciting to go into these different places and set some roots and connect with some incredible teachers who are doing work. There's another reason why I believe that there's enough for everyone, is because all of us teachers are so unique. and we have a different message, and we have a new approach or a different way in which we're looking at the practice. And so I feel like if we look at it from that way, then there's endless amounts of opportunity, because there's endless amounts of potential within all of these teachers to share their wisdom and share their practice.
Yeah, definitely. That's a cool way to structure it. It's kind of like, hey, you need to connect with so-and-so. And, that's a lot of what I've done with this podcast. And it's led me to meet so many cool people like yourself. So I really love, I'm really passionate about meeting new people and traveling. And I love that you and Carly have done that with your business, where it's like, cool, you think this person's awesome? Let's check them out.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And so how long have you been a part of the Vancouver School of Yoga?
So I started guest teaching there in 2008, and then took over end of 2011. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, so took over the 200 hour and 240 hour, which is the foundation trainings. And we call it the foundation trainings because now the school has also 2 different 300 hour trainings. So it just differentiates it. Yeah, it's been a really amazing job. Yeah.
So what do you do exactly as the director of the programs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I organize the program, so schedule the guest teachers, then put together the format, so the way in which I want the program to be laid out and the way in which the information will come out. So I'm not only scheduling the teachers, but scheduling the lessons for the day and the week. And it gives me a good idea of the very specifics of the program, but also what's the main outcome. Obviously to teach yoga, however, how in which are they going to do that, and what's a really skillful program, in other words. So I'm in charge of the entire program, of the content, of putting it together, hiring the guest teachers, making sure that they're up to date on the lesson plans and the way in which I want things to roll out. And then being the main facilitator, I have the majority of the hours in teaching in the teacher's seat. And so I get to help with the students and teach from my own practice and evaluate all the practicums and mark all the exams. And relationship with the Vancouver School of Yoga is just remarkable. And so we're all really well supported. And yeah, it's kind of like a little baby, I guess you could say. My second baby.
Yeah. That's super cool. That sounds like such a cool project to be a part of.
Yeah, it's exhausting. I'm not going to lie. But in the most rewarding way. Again, like a baby. I don't know if anyone out there has had a baby, or if you have had a baby, or anyone's had a baby, but it's the most rewarding job in the whole wide world, but most exhausting job in the whole wide world. And it's similar to that with the teacher trainings. You really, nurture the program and nurture the students that come into the program. And it's a lot of, you can lay out how you want the program to go and put all the content and the information together, but it's only until you meet those people and that specific group of people do you understand how it will somewhat unfold. And I always find that really fascinating, that one group is never the same. And that the dynamic of the group and the people coming together and the way in which they're willing to be vulnerable and the way in which they're willing to connect to themselves and the way in which they're willing to, represent themselves is really, a part of how the training will unfold and the way in which they will connect with the information. And yeah, see, that's what I'm like, oh, they're like your little babies. At the end, you're like, no, don't go. You're letting them out in the nest. You're so excited, but you're so sad. And yeah.
Fly, little ones, but don't go too far.
Yeah, go, you're ready. Oh, yeah.
It's super cool because I feel like teacher trainings are really special in a way that, it's a specific group of people that gets so close and has this special bond, and you'll never have that exact same group of people in that place in time ever again. So it's just this very special connection with the people that you do it with.
Yes, truth. It's so true. I remember, obviously, when I did my first teacher training, it's you see your life before teacher training and after. It's that page break. You know what I mean? Before teacher training and after. It was such a life-changing experience. And some people, depending on the group and the way in which they come together, they have friends for life and a community of people who already support them. And it's been really remarkable to see that as well with the groups, how they love each other and support each other and continue to teach with each other outside of the program. It's really great.
Yeah. Is it mostly Vancouver-based students that come into the programs, or do people travel?
All over the world. We've had people from Ireland and China, all over Europe, Croatia, Italy, Spain, France, lots of British from the UK. England, tons of people across Canada. So many people from like Alberta and Saskatchewan, as far as Nova Scotia, it's endless. And then obviously people traveling from within the province, in different areas like Nelson, BC. And yeah, it's really cool. It's great. I love the conversation in the beginning of like, why are you here and where are you from and why'd you choose us over somewhere out there? And it's usually just out of curiosity that brings people to us, which is great.
Yeah, totally. I feel like, running teacher trainings and knowing how many other teacher trainings there are out there, it would definitely be something that you're curious about, like what drew you to our program, and knowing that, you make that happen is probably pretty special.
It is. Yeah. It's not all me. We have an amazing faculty of teachers, that are there. Christine Price Clark and Chelsea Lee are, the other two program directors at the Vancouver School of Yoga, Shawnee McInnes and, Carol Ray and Shivani Wells, Chantel Russell, Tova Payne does our business of yoga. And it's just all of these incredible women. It's funny how they're all women have, come together to like really nurture not only the school, but the program as a whole. And I'm really proud of it. We're a school that you don't just get certified upon completion. You actually have to pass all of your classes, pass your exams, pass your final practicums. You have to show up and have professionalism to actually get your certificate at the end. And to me, I'm really proud of that, because it means like you have to show your love for yoga. You have to show that you're devoted and dedicated to this practice and to the teaching of this practice, to actually say for us to say to you, like, here you go, like you're ready for this, instead of just saying, oh, give us your money and then it's over. I really feel proud of that.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because there's seriously like thousands of teacher trainings out there.
Yeah.
Like I remember when I was trying to choose one, I knew that I wanted to go abroad and do an intensive, and that's all I knew. And I spent hours poring over the internet, like hours, combing through websites, just trying to figure out what program to do. And I finally just picked one, because I was like, if I keep trying to do this, I'm just never going to go.
Totally.
But I think it's really important, to make sure that people are ready. And there's a certain level of like trusting that you've taught them enough and that they know enough and that they'll trust themselves with what they know. But then there's also, making sure that it's good quality.
Yeah. Yeah. We're very much a teaching school. So we pride ourselves on teaching skills and doing that purposefully. And so, we have a high percentage. I think it's 90 to 95% of our graduates at the Vancouver School of Yoga are teaching.
Cool.
And that, of course, looks like many different things. We have people that are volunteering and, working at the YMCA or working in their temple or their church. And then we have people who are, full on teaching 20, 25 classes a week, or we have people who are specifically teaching in corporate offices or just leading workshops and retreats. The range of what it is that they're teaching varies, and it's quite vast. But the fact that people are getting out there and teaching is really remarkable as well. It means that they've learned enough, like you said, that they feel confident to just go out and share that. And that excites me. That's why I keep going back. That's why I keep doing it. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's cool too to have the focus of like, you're going to get sort of, like you have to show up and you have to be professional and you need to show like your passion for yoga. And I think everyone should do a teacher training just because you learn so much about yourself in it.
Yeah.
But I think that there is like different levels of teacher trainings and different things called to different people based on what they want. Like some people kind of just want to do it and hang out on the beach and kind of like only be partly there. And I feel like having like a 90 to 95% rate of people who are teaching really shows that your school is about like people who want to teach.
Yes. Yeah, we make that very clear in our information sessions as well. And it's not to say that people haven't come to take the course because they're curious about yoga or wanting to deepen their own practice, but I can tell you by the end of it, because they've done so many teaching and so teaching so often throughout the training, because that matters so much to us, is that they end up teaching. And we've had a variety of ages as well. We get people from like right out of high school, 18, 19 years old, to people in their 60s. And so that again creates such an interesting dynamic with the people. And as you mentioned, I completely agree with what you said, that teacher training, you learn so much about yourself. And that seems to be part of the journey that's not always easy to explain, that it's all about experiencing, that people understand that, you know what, you're going to learn a lot about yourself and your little tendencies and what matters to you on this path. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I think you have to experience for yourself. Like a girl I worked with at the time was like, oh, you're going to learn so much about yourself. And I was like, I think I'm mostly going to learn about yoga, but thanks.
Right.
And then I came back and I was like, I learned yoga, but I mostly learned about myself.
Right. Yes. So true. Yeah, you were right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of stubborn in that way that I'm like, I don't think so until I actually experience it.
Right. Join the club.
And so any goals or dreams, ambitions with Vancouver School of Yoga?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I would honestly like to move away from the traditional 200-hour model. I would like to increase it. So at the Vancouver School, we have in the traditional immersions, which is 200 hours done over 6 weeks, Monday to Friday. But then we also have a 240-hour enriched program. And so it is literally 240 in our classroom hours. And then we also get obviously like homework and other assignments that you do outside of the classroom. And it's always been surprising, and I don't know why it's surprising, but it's remarkable how much that extra time, that little 40 hours, makes such a difference in people's ability to retain information, people's ability to embody what it is that we're talking about. So go from like theory to more practical experience of it all. And then time to just teach and practice teaching. And it seems like the experience is richer. And so to be honest, I would really like to go from just 200 hours to 240 minimum or 250. And I know that freaks some people out because they're thinking, I got to spend more time doing that. And it's going to cost a little bit more money. And I think, but it's so worth it.
Yeah.
It's so worth it.
Yeah. It's investing in yourself. It's investing in your career.
Yes, exactly. So that would be something that I would like to see sort of shift in the industry. But overall, like I said, I'm really proud of the school, and I'm so honored to sit amongst such a strong faculty of teachers, people that, hold me up to certain standards, and that we all hold each other accountable for what it is that we're talking about and what it is that we're cultivating, creating together. Mm-hmm. It's really exciting.
That's super cool. Do you have to run like trainings constantly, or is it sort of just a couple a year? Or
so there's 4 200-hour or 3 200-hour trainings a year, 1 240-hour a year, and then there's 2 300 hours. So one of the 300 hours is a therapeutic training, foundations of yoga therapy, and then the other one is a group advanced yoga. So taking what we learned in the 200 or 240 and refining that, adding on to it and getting more skillful with our teachings, but looking at it more from a group setting versus the therapeutics, which focuses more on one-on-one sort of clinical stuff. So that takes up most of the year. So that probably keeps you pretty busy between that and teaching your regular classes. Yes. Yeah. And being a mom and, being there for my husband and, taking care of myself. And, absolutely. I like to go on vacation. Someone asked me recently, are you going to do any retreats? And I was like, no, I'm going to go on vacation.
I feel like there's this kind of like misconception of what goes into being a yoga teacher. People just think it's like so luxurious because they come and they have this really amazing experience and they show up and they leave. And I feel like it's kind of this idea that yoga teachers are doing the same thing.
Right.
When there's actually so much going on. So it's like
so much going on.
I mean, I've never run a yoga retreat, but I can imagine that it's a lot of work as the person running it.
Yes, absolutely. And just the same as the yoga teacher trainings. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how much time I spend not getting paid for taking care of students or just putting together my lesson plans. And at the end of every training, I refine the training, which I find I'm just continuing to simplify it and making it more potent, distilling the teachings in a way that's clearer and more profound, or at least more accessible. That's a big word for me, accessible.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of work. Like I'd like to say that for every 1 hour of teaching, I spend 3 to 4 hours of preparing for that hour.
Wow, that's incredible.
And to think you only get paid for that 1 hour, the 3 to 4 hours. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's where the misconception comes up. And that doesn't include, the business side of it that I didn't always know about, that you have to write your own invoices and you have to, people don't always know that you have to put money away for your taxes because you're a contract employee, or you're not necessarily an employee, you're just a contractor. Yeah. You keep up to date on your website, and, when you're doing workshops, a lot of time you're putting your posts together. So let's talk about it. Now, I'm a yoga teacher. I'm an administrative, bookkeeper. I'm a graphic designer. It's like, what? I didn't sign up for that. I just wanted to teach asana, right? I just wanted to teach shapes. Like, what the heck?
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much other stuff that goes into it.
Yeah. Complex. But you know what? Wouldn't change it for the world. And again, it continues to remind me, what do I need help in? So talking to my bookkeeper, love her. Talking to my accountant, love her, right? Easy programs like WordPress that make updating websites so much easier. Thank God for all of that. And, my tech friends that I call in a panic thinking, oh my God, I pressed something. I have no idea what I did, but it's all gone. Right? And then they save my butt for free. Like, thank you to all those people.
I feel you. Technology is always this thing that's just there for me.
Yes. Right. Well, you're doing great.
Oh, thank you. My boyfriend is always a little bit suspicious of talking to me if I'm on my computer and I look a little bit frustrated. Like, he sees the signs, the shoulders go up, I curl in a little bit. He's like, Amanda, maybe you should step away from the technology for a second.
Hey babe, go take a break, right? Yeah. Go and roll your mat for 5 and then come back.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's cool though when you realize that, other people can help you. And there's so many great services out there now. Like, running a business in 2016 is really cool because, there's people who will design logos for you and they'll put together copy for you and get that stuff done for a really reasonable price.
Yes, true that. Yeah.
So what are some of the biggest things you've learned through being the program director at the Vancouver School of Yoga?
Simple is powerful. Yeah.
Not complicating.
I find I get in my own way most of the time, and I overcomplicate things. And the more I simplify, and almost start from the big picture so I find, taking your objective, like I mentioned before, why are you here? What are your intentions? What are you trying to teach in this moment or in this class? And how can I do that in the most simplest, logical, relevant way? And that's been something that's, just helped me honestly become a even more skillful teacher in my ability to do that, to simplify.
That's incredible. That's good for people to know. And I feel like especially for people who want to develop teacher trainings, yoga is so complex on so many levels.
Yes.
I feel like when you step into the room for your 200 level and somebody throws all this philosophy at you, it's kind of what?
Yes.
Or anatomy too, if you don't have that background.
Oh,
it's
right.
That muscle does what? Sorry, what am I supposed to do for that?
Yes. Oh, we're so blessed at the school. I don't even think I mentioned her name, but Jill Irvine is a local physiotherapist and a yoga therapist, a yoga teacher, of course. Yeah. And we're so lucky to have her because she too embodies that ability to simplify and to take what you're learning in this really complex form, and put it into shape and put it into some relevance. And she's fun and playful, and you're not just sitting there zoning out on the whiteboard as she lectures. We're really lucky. And she's just one of the many anatomy teachers at the school that are that are part of the program that are all really skillful, because anatomy can be super dry and kind of scary and intimidating. And,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's hard too when you like get into a room, especially as a new teacher, and you see all these different bodies moving in all these different ways that are different from your own or from anyone else that you've experienced. And
Yes.
you know, just because you have a teacher training, it definitely does not make you a doctor, a physiotherapist, or a chiropractor. So it's
Correct.
cool to have somebody who does have that background come in and do some teaching.
Correct. Yes. And show from her lens. I like to look at them like lenses, like you put on glasses and then you see it through that lens. Yeah, that's the beautiful thing about having guest teachers, that it's nice for me as well, because then it's not all reliant on me being there for everyone and knowing everything. It's about me saying, hey, I'm really good at this, and she's really good at that, and he's really good at that. So why don't we all collaborate together, support each other in this process, and in the meantime, really well educate these people that are here and wanting to learn, and let them see from all these different lenses, from all these different experiences, but yet see also the common thread that runs through all of our voices in our own unique way.
Yeah, that's great. Sounds like a fantastic program.
Yeah, right? I didn't know. I was just like, toot the horn. Toot my own horn. Sounds kind of weird. Yeah.
It goes back to what you're doing is good enough.
Yes, it does, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah. And so I'd love to hear just what and kind of your day to day looks like.
Yeah. Well, my husband goes to work really early in the morning. So, the mornings include my daughter running into my room, jumping into bed with me. We snuggle for a while. Then we get up and eat breakfast and usually watch cartoons while I'm packing her lunch. Then I get her off to school, and as she gets off to school, then I go off to teach. And so I teach locally in the area. And once I'm done teaching, which is usually done around 11 or 12, I come home, and that's when I have my own practice. So I practice before lunch. It's kind of a nice way to move my body and then reward myself afterwards. I'm like, oh, I moved my body. I feel great. Let's eat.
I love that.
And then once I've sort of eaten and nourished myself, then I usually jump on the computer and check some emails, or, finish up on some of the lesson plans I've been doing, or, update my website, or all the different tasks, the long, never-ending to-do list that I have to do. And that usually takes up a few hours. I really can't sit for very long, in the sense of in front of the computer, just in those types of tasks. I find, I get really antsy and I can lose focus quite easily. So I say, you know what, 2 to 3 hours is enough. And I get that done, and then I swoop in to pick up my daughter, and we come back and we play. And in the evening, if I'm not rushing off to do an info session at the Vancouver School of Yoga, or meet with Carly and our team at Yoga, or teach a class myself, then I'm usually joyfully got my feet up on the couch, snuggling with Stella and my husband, watching a movie, which is usually like Star Wars or something action-packed, because that's what I always get voted out on those ones. Even though, don't get me wrong, Star Wars is great, but I kind of like a comedy now and then.
I love Star Wars.
Yeah. Right? Star Wars is great. Don't get me wrong. Don't hate on me. I swear I love Star Wars. But they love the Star Wars cartoon, the Clone Wars. And so, I don't know. I could do without that. I like cooking shows, by the way. If it was me by myself, I would be watching endless cooking shows because I love to cook. That's another thing that's new about me. Yeah, and then it's usually into bed early if I can, and repeat.
That sounds awesome. It sounds like you've got a really good balance between your personal life and your work life.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to say so, even though I'm totally normal and have moments of sheer panic and feeling completely overwhelmed. That's why I love my practice so much. To be honest, yoga for me is a resource for living everyday life. And so if I can get to my mat, even if it's just 30 minutes, that's all I can get in before, the madness of the day continues, then I just feel better and I feel more human, and I feel like I can function in those, titles a little easier.
Yeah, definitely. That definitely resonates with me. I totally get that.
Yeah.
I think too, it's super normal, whatever you're doing, to have those moments of just I don't know what's happening.
Yeah. Right? Yes. And I want people to know that, I feel often that people assume that not only yoga teachers have this really glamorous life, but that we are somehow, guarded from the everyday suffering of life as well. And it's not the truth that we suffer sometimes just as much, if not more. And that's why our practice is so valuable to us, is because it's that area in which we can go to ourselves, into ourselves, and connect, see the choices we have and direct ourselves in a way that would serve or that would soften that suffering.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, because people do sometimes get that perception of people. But I mean, people only know you in the time that they've like met you or whatever. So a lot of people don't know like you before you found yoga, or me before I started doing yoga. Like I know for me, the people who, like my family who's known me my whole life would be like, as a teenager, I was crazy. Like say the wrong thing, I'm going to scream your face off. Whereas people now would be like, would you ever do that? And I'd be like, no, if I get to that point, it's like, I know how to deal with it.
Yes.
And that's why I practice yoga, because then I can bring those things to my everyday life.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it is interesting, kind of that notion that sometimes people get around yoga teachers.
Absolutely. There's so many myths around yoga and teaching yoga and yoga teachers, and I love squashing all of those.
Need yoga teaching mythbusters out there.
Yeah, right? Oh, that'd be a great one. Should do that.
Need the videographers on that.
Yes, totally.
And carry around yoga mats instead of whatever the Ghostbusters carry around.
Yeah, like the ghost vacuum thing, right? Where suck up all the
future business idea.
Yeah, right? Oh gosh, I don't need any more. I'm too busy.
Yeah, it's cool that you're like managing 2 businesses and being a yoga teacher and being a mom and a wife.
Yeah.
And yourself, obviously, like making time for yourself in that.
Right? Talking about it makes me tired.
That's fair.
You know what? Setting boundaries. I set clear boundaries, and I come back to that sense of sufficiency. My to-do list never end, to be honest, and it can be really overwhelming at times, but I joyfully, check off what I get done in that day, and then I just trust that that was enough. And I get really good at setting those boundaries so that I can have time with my family and scheduling time for me. It's important, and my family understands that as being important. And I also feel that from a mother's perspective, I'm teaching my daughter that self-care is important as well, by just showing her that I need to take care of myself. And so, I feel like walking the talk is so important, that I don't want to just be that person where people feel like they're being preached to, but that I'm actually showing up and walking the talk that I'm representing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great. I think it's really easy to kind of dive into anything you're doing, but maybe it's yoga teaching and you're teaching 20 to 25 classes a week and you don't have time for your own practice.
Yeah.
And it's kind of then, I think that practicing is really, really important as a teacher.
Absolutely. It's the foundation for your teachings. If you're not practicing, then it's so quick for you to burn out and feel uninspired and to lose your why. Like, how are you able to serve your students if you're not able to serve yourself? Yeah.
And it's hard when you're like, oh, I really loved this thing and now I don't have time to do it myself. It almost it takes some of the joy and the passion out of it.
Yeah. I would encourage people that are in that place where they're teaching 20 and 25 classes a week and struggling with their ability to get to their own mat and lost a bit of motivation and inspiration, to honestly consider how they can change that, how they could be smarter. So like, why are they teaching 20 to 25 classes? Is it because they have an inability to say no and set some healthy boundaries? Or is it because they're struggling and getting out of debt, or they need to make a certain amount of money every month? And I feel so often that teachers think that we need to like jump right into it right away, and that our craft needs to be that thing in which pays for our financial freedom. And, sometimes the best thing you can do is to have a part-time job and then teach a few classes a week, and so that you can have your bills paid, do what you love, which is teaching yoga, and still have time for yourself. That sometimes just teaching yoga may not be the thing that pays for everything else, but it can be the thing that keeps you calm, that keeps you grounded, that keeps you focused, that keeps taking care of you. Yeah. And so I would really encourage those that are sitting in that place and feeling that way and feeling really burnt out to consider why they're doing it, how they could potentially look at it a different way and take care of themselves in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great advice. Like knowing your own limits.
Yes.
And, some people are happy to teach that many classes in a week.
Totally.
Like, the thought of that for me makes me want to go lie down in my bed and take a nap.
Yeah. I want to run to a cave and never come back. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like way too much energy output for me.
Yes.
But some people thrive off of that, and that's amazing. And I think that people need to, 3 classes a week is sort of like where it's at for you, and you do something else on the side to keep your finances secure, then I don't think that makes you any lesser of a teacher.
No. Oh my gosh. The people that I know that have other jobs and teach yoga are usually the ones that are happiest because they come to yoga so excited to be teaching yoga. They're not looking at it as a financial means. They're just looking at it as sharing their joy of the practice. And they're always really remarkable teachers. So sometimes when we just take the pressure away from it to be something that it needs to be, then it allows for the natural sort of like creative energy to come up through that. Elizabeth Gilbert talks about that a lot in her book, Big Magic. It was a really great book. Yeah, if anyone out there is reading it or wants to read it.
Cool. Yeah, I haven't read that one by her, but
yeah, it's great.
I love reading, so I'll definitely add that to my list.
Right. Actually, if you want to add the best into your list, it's Brené Brown. I've read all of her books. They're the most remarkable books. I think she's one of the most remarkable people. I am like the biggest Brené Brown fan ever.
Yeah, I've read all of her books too, so.
Yes! Okay, good. You're like me then. Oh.
She's so great. The first book I read was The Gifts of Imperfection, and I was like,
me too.
Whoa. I was like, she's just like knows what's going on in my head right now.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you should see it now. It's like falling apart and it's all like underlined and circled and yeah.
I have just one final question to you that I'm asking every person that I'm interviewing. And that's, if you could give advice to yourself when you first started teaching from everything that you know now, what would that piece of advice be?
Trying to get really clear on the one message I would say. It would have to be somewhat of a combination of it's okay to ask for help and simple is powerful. Less is more. So worry less about what other people are thinking. Worry less about whether you're sounding redundant or you think people may believe your classes are boring because you do the same thing. And instead just continue to share yourself unapologetically in a simple and clear way so that, your students get an experience of you from that authentic place. Yeah, and it's not to say that I wasn't like that in the beginning, but I always felt like I needed to prove something and that I felt like for years I was continuing to show up in that light, and it created a lot of unnecessary anxiety and a lot of unnecessary sort of limiting concepts on myself. And so if I were to look back at that person now and say, you know what, simple is best. Like be authentic, be true to yourself, and ask for help when you need it.
Amazing. I love all that advice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time and for coming on the podcast. This is amazing. It's been so great to talk to you.
I feel the same way, Amanda. So nice to meet you. And hopefully this, whatever we talk about here, that there may be a spark of something and someone listening that inspires them to spend time with themselves or look into yoga or stay on the path. Yeah. Thanks for doing what you're doing.
All right, so there's the interview with Lauren Roegele. Feel free to check out Yogo TV it's Yogo, so YOGO.TV. And you can just Google that or just put that in your search bar and it'll come up. Definitely go check it out. Practice yoga for 7 days for free. Get a membership. And then definitely check out the Vancouver School of Yoga. It's vancouverschoolofyoga.com. If you're looking to do another teacher training or perhaps do your first teacher training, definitely a great option for anyone in Western Canada or even anywhere in the world. And then if you want to check out Lauren's personal website, www.laurensyoga.com, and I'll put links to all of this stuff on the show notes at www.mbomyoga.com. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, or you just want to say hi, I'm always open to hearing from you. So shoot me an email at info@mbomyoga.com. And as always, thank you so much for listening.